Man, one of the things that I've really grown to understand and learn and really empathize with, from just having a relationship with my father-in-law is like the amount of pressures that pastors and leaders in churches, really go through.
It's constant.
And when I really sat and like, first of all, I got an inward look at it, but then I just got to start to thinking. I'm like, number one, it's already just enough pressure as it is to like, just live your own life. And then when you are a leader for God and servant for God in that way, that puts a different type of pressure on you from everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And to me, I'm like, well, that can't be healthy, to have constant people on your back like that all the time, right? So like, how have you dealt with it, good or bad, over the years? How have you dealt with like the pressure of being a pastor?
That's fair. I don't think I dealt with it good at all initially. I think it was overwhelming, and I think it almost ruined my marriage because I was kind of locked in. I was like, it's kind of like just me and Jesus, and then it was Lita over here, and then with Lita and Brittany. Then the kids, I was kind of like, leave me alone, let me do this Jesus thing.
Right.
And that was my response to it. But that was rough. That almost ended my marriage, man. And I had to get myself together. I didn't really gain perspective until I went to college and started taking counseling for my master's. And then so imagine sitting in class and everything they talk about, you think you are. So I'm nuts. I'm sitting there, I probably should tap out,
right,
and go get a padded rule and some crayons, and just call it a day. But every class, every issue, I felt like I had, and it wasn't until I got enough training and education to know I needed to start talking to somebody. So I had to get in some counseling myself to weed through it. But that pressure was overwhelming.
And how long had you been preaching at that time before you really, going to school for your master's?
10 years, man. 10 years. It was over 10 years. Because I started preaching at 21, I was pastoring at 24.
And so were you, this is an interesting conversation. Did you start getting, did your counseling come inside the church, or did it come externally from psychologists or counselors?
It came outside the church.
So why did you go that route? Because
I was in school.
Got it. So you seen the value of counseling and really sitting with somebody. Then that's interesting. That is a real perspective, right? Because somebody like myself, the first time that I even understood the word counseling or identified that as something that people did, it was relationship counseling through church, grief counseling through church, or just marriage counseling through church and things like that. I didn't really see the value of counseling and sitting down and talking to somebody until I began doing the work, like you said myself.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people associate counseling and getting help with people only within the church.
Yeah, no. And see, here's the funny part. Like with Pastor Dennis, he and I, we've been friends the whole time. He's obviously started preaching. As a matter of fact, whoever see this, y'all need to know Jeff Dennis is older than me. He at least 17,
OG, man.
He at least 17 years older than me. I just got more gray hair than him. But Jeff Dennis is older than a mother.
He is, man. He is.
But no, we were going through this stuff together. And so I was in school when he was forming back then. It was the African American Counseling Team, I think they called it.
Right.
But I remember when he was actively putting that together, I was still in school.
Okay.
Because at that point, we all starting to wake up.
Right.
And we're like, hey man, we all have crazy. We need something in place to help people, because if it were not for our faith and each other, there was a nucleus of us. We could talk to each other about anything and get truth. So that was cool. We held each other accountable. But Jeff started understanding early, if we doing this, our members are doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's when we started to piece that thing together.
Right.
But I was in school, man, hearing this stuff, and then we started talking about being bipolar, and I said, I'm crazy. I'm bipolar. To the next week, I'm schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Then I thought I was everything in the book.
Right.
And so that's what kind of made me go ahead and start talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And my counselor just happened to be at Ashland.
There go God again, put in your path, man.
And his name was Dave. And Dave is the one who started talking me through it. He started talking me through David May. He started talking me through it. A white cat, but remarkably insightful.
Okay.
And that's how I kind of started getting healthy, emotionally and mentally, because I promise you, another year or two on the path I was on, I don't think I would have stayed married.
Yeah.
We were growing apart,
Right.
man.
Right.
Let me do this, and I was throwing money at it
Right.
because I was making a lot. I was working at the university, and I'm at the church, I'm doing good. And so if Lita got mad, I bought her for a coat or something.
You was trying to ban
Yeah.
So, all right, so tell me this. Tell people why is it important to, lean on your faith in the midst of turmoil, but also seek some outside sources and get counseling? Why are those two important together?
Yeah. Well, faith is important simply because you have to know that there's something bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a plan bigger than yours,
Mm-hmm.
and you got help beyond your own ability to provide it.
Right.
But the counseling piece doesn't work without accountability.
Mm-hmm.
See, so I couldn't just do John the counseling. I needed people like Jeff Dennis to make me accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can go tell your counselor anything.
Yeah. No, that's real. That's
They
real.
don't know.
That's real. You can literally lie.
Come on, man.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
And they don't know you can
That is
blame
real.
other people.
That is real.
You can switch up the story.
That's real.
So it's also important to have people who you can be transparent with.
Right.
My friend Bernard Bell said this to his son, and Bernard just passed away a couple weeks ago. But he said this to his son: you got to get some people around you who love you too much to lie to you.
Mm.
See, because counseling won't work if you can create this other thing in yourself, in your head, and all of that. There must be accountability beyond this person who only knows me therapeutically.
Mm.
Somebody has to know I'm in therapy.
Right.
Somebody has to know the stuff I'm working on, so they can help me stay away from the things that could pull me down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So it's not just the counseling, and it's not just the faith. It's also, you gotta have people you trust and who you know will require you to be accountability. One was Jeff Dennis. The other is my biological brother, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell Mike anything, but he gonna hold me accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always the preacher to him. I'm his little brother,
Mm-hmm.
but he ain't playing.
Right.
I'm his pastor too.
Right.
And so I can tell him anything. His thing be like, okay, so what you gonna do?
Right.
Yeah. So I think counseling is important. Faith is definitely important. But those two things, even faith without accountability don't mean much. Somebody got to make you accountable to what you say and who you say you are. Now, when you get into manhood and fatherhood and being a husband like you are, the people you go home to make you accountable.
Yeah, that's a fact.
You see what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
Because the last thing you want to do is embarrass them and let them down.
Right.
You see, at least when you wired the right way.
Right.
So that becomes a source of accountability as well.
Yeah.
But the faith is important because you got to know it's something bigger than you.
Yeah.
It's something bigger than this moment. It's something bigger than what's happening to me.
Right.
The counseling is there because you got to get out of your own head.
Right.
Because we can tell ourselves anything and believe it.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is you gotta have not a big circle, a tight one, 1, 2, 3 people that you are accountable to. That I would just rather quit doing it than disappoint them.
Yeah.
And my parents were that for me too.
That's good.
Because they believed in me so much. I didn't care about disappointing the church. Man, the last thing I wanted was my mother or father to say, I'm ashamed of you.
Right.
That would have ripped me up.
Right.
So that accountability piece is important.